So she unfortunately got very sick with what we found out to be meningitis when she was nearly 1 year old. And the medication they put her on, the antibiotics that actually was able to kill the meningitis, had a high probability of causing deafness, as well as obviously meningitis itself also having a high probability of causing deafness. When Jorja was healed and got better, she did do a hearing test at the hospital before being discharged, and they thought everything was okay. But obviously she was only just 1 year old, pretty hard to test. So it was probably about a month later that I just knew something wasn't right. I could tell she wasn't hearing me. So we went back for a further hearing test, and that was when they said she was deaf. I was very upset. I was all of a sudden racing ahead to what her life would be through school, the university, jobs, and she was only one year old. My biggest fear when I first found out she was deaf is that she would potentially be quite isolated, quite alone, maybe feeling a little bit alienated, and may struggle to make friends. But do I have those fears or concerns now? Not so much. Jorja is just a really confident kid. She's happy, she gives everything a go, so I'm super proud of her, and it's basically made me feel, or reassured me, that she's going to be fine in life. But certainly as a parent, you know, I'm never going to stop worrying, but I don't think that's got anything to do with her deafness. I knew a very little bit of sign language before. Obviously, I started to learn sign language for Jorja's sake through, I think it was Ollie Olsen from After School. But again, when we got Jorja enrolled into the early intervention program at Van Ash, and we went out there a few times a week, and I started learning sign language just through osmosis, through Jorja learning. It got to the point where I needed to boost my sign language. I started doing night classes at Hagley. It was fun learning in a classroom situation where there was others in the room, and obviously you get the enjoyment of the interaction there. And a lot of the signs are, when you start learning them, you realise that a lot of them are, as they sort of, they're quite logical, is what I'm trying to say. Learning New Zealand Sign Language, I got to the point where a class situation wasn't that helpful because it wasn't dealing with a lot with the conversational sign, which is kind of what I needed to move into. And so then you have the issue of finding additional time in your life on top of work and other activities to try and immerse yourself into situations where you can have conversations with other fluent signers.
But what we did there is basically... Okay. Oh. Hey, so nice job. We've made it halfway. Are you doing okay? Okay, hands in the middle. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Come on, let's go.
It is tricky, and I don't feel like I have enough sign language knowledge to be able to have a very what's the word for it? Almost fluid conversation with Jorja. It's a little bit stop-starty because I need to stop and think about a sign, or I need to get Jorja to repeat a sign to me because I didn't understand it because she signs very fast. So what I do find difficult is when we're together as a family, it comes to me to interpret a lot of the conversations. And my skill as a signer means that it's very hard for me to stop and listen to the conversation, contribute to the conversation and interpret the conversation to Jorja. And on top of that, you realise, I think, with the English language, there's so many words that are unnecessary. And so almost a 10-minute conversation, I can sign to Jorja in about 5 signs, and she looks at me as if to say, well, what else was you talking about? And I'm like, well, that was it. So the sign language was definitely the easiest way. She picked it up really quickly. I was very fortunate. The school also embraced it, and so all of the little 5-year-olds, the new entrants at Yoldhurst Model School, also learnt the sign alongside her. And yeah, as we sort of said before, it was fun, and the kids really enjoyed learning it. So I've just never questioned it. It's just something that's become just part of our life. Personally, I think how I would have done things differently, I probably would have been less hard on myself, because I was always thinking I was letting her down, and I was always thinking that what she was going through was unique to the fact that she was deaf, and often finding that upon talking to other mums who had similar aged children, that actually it was more of an age issue, not really anything to do with her being deaf. I would like to think she could, and it seems a little cliche, but I'd like to think that she could do whatever she wants to, whatever she puts her mind to. And we're just very fortunate that we're in the age that technology is just only making things easier for people in Jorja's situation. Go with your gut instinct and go with what feels right, because it's very easy when you're in a vulnerable situation where you've just found out your child's deaf to have a lot of people talking and influencing potentially your thoughts and your decisions. And I think it's important to really just trust your own instinct and what you think is best for your child.